I did not expect it to be live that quickly. I was playing copyrighted music. Let me try. No. Most of the BFDI music on my Spotify is gone, so I don't know if I'd be able to play it. I can play this if it will let me. It's not letting me. Alright, you guys can play tic-tac-toe, cause I have that on the like stream thing. Alright, I'll start in like a couple minutes. Give me like a couple seconds or a couple minutes, like start the fan fiction. It's exclamation mark tic-tac-toe to play, not colon tic-tac-toe. Do exclamation mark instead of the colon. Hi, Vivi. We are fear gardening today. I'm pretty sure the tic-tac-toe thing's a tie. Okay. It is time for the return of the beep beep. Alright. Is that the highest I can make it? Okay, finally, chat is live. Okay. Time to read Fear Garden. It's like the first time actually reading this, so. Alright. Late into the afternoon, leaves gently floated through the air. Euro City, an abandoned place lingering with mystery and nostalgia. Yet, a few objects were vacant in the city, both eliminated, though they were in a tiny loser chamber. Feel pity. I meant chamber. And those who were still competing, they all wandered freely, exploring the city and the wonders behind it, or they stayed and did their daily chores, such as gardening or cleaning up the area of stay. They kept themselves busy each and every day that passed. The Yo Needy stood high in the air, with a cage swaying gently from side to side, Fire sitting inside of it and screaming at the top of his lungs. A strange, but yet clever punishment given to him by the Feast Mothers. Typical. Everything was going as usual as it was. The Feast Mothers strolling... Okay, the music's a little bit loud. Strolling through the city and soon heading towards the Yoneidi. Fries was occupied tending to his potato garden, while a few others hung around to keep him company. Corny and Nickel chatted with Fries about the day, and the chilly temperatures it brought, while the scientists were fixing up the wall teleporter they brought from the museum. Everyone was busy with their day. Except one. In the far outskirts of the city was a luminescent garden overflowing with life and glowing with beauty. Ever since they all arrived there, she found this spot to be perfect for her garden. Years of hard work has brought her such a lively and stunning garden, though that was not how she felt. The owner of the garden, Pin. She was pacing back and forth, her arms and hands trembling and her breathing heavy and anxious. The garden used to produce such a soft and soothing feeling to Pin that would usually help her calm down in moments like these. She wasn't someone who would get scared easily, no. She was loud and proud. A true leader at heart, but still, leaders do fall apart at times and need a moment to recollect themselves and fix up the mistakes. But Pin was falling apart. A few weeks back, a heat-hellish nightmare woke her from peaceful slumber. She was standing in front of the garden, feeling strangely jubilant and powerful, such as a queen preparing for a celebration. The sky was as red as blood, with dark, gloomy clouds drifting slowly through the heavy air. In her hands was a small cracked pot, with dirt and a few small seeds inside. Also in the middle of these contents stood a hand. A cold, lifeless hand, with drops of blood around the sides, or on the sides. Wrapped around the wrist was a small tag, which once had a name scribbled onto it, but was soon drenched in blood, with grains of dirt on the top. Around the garden, there was a dark and heavy fog, though as Pin approached it, it vanished, revealing a garden of pure hands. Hands that had been removed from their owners. Lifeless fingers dangled downwards like weeping willow branches, as the bodies of the owners of the hands were placed in multiple areas of the garden. Small tombstones were placed next to the corpses, revealing their names and what their purpose in the garden is. Pin walked through the garden, reading all of the small tombstones. Oh yeah, Misky's playing. Flower brings a bit of beauty to the garden. Rocky, a stool. Match helps let the plants grow upright instead of slouched. She continued making her way through the garden until she arrived to a small corner with a hole buried into the dirt. The tombstone beside the open hole gleamed with dark sunlight that hid it. There, it read the name. Coiny. Pin's eyes snapped open as she jolted upright from her bed, letting out a startled gasp. Her face was pale and flushed, beads of sweat dripping down her face. Her eyes were bloodshot, and soon they began to fill with tears. She breathed quickly as she looked around the small room. Darkness stuffed the entire room, the only light coming from the moon outside. The room was cool, as if the 90 autumn air was giving her a loose hug. The door stood slightly ajar, revealing the darkness of the hallway, where another door could be seen. The slow ticking of a clock was the only thing that broke the silence of the night. She gently got out of bed and left the bedroom, her hands still trembling and cold to the touch. She walked down the hall, and Sue was standing in front of an orange-colored door. She hesitantly wrapped her head around the knob and turned it, opening the door gently. As it opened, she took a peek inside to the object underneath the covers of his bed, letting out loud snores that echoed in the room. It was Coiny. I wish I was sleeping with Coiny. He was fast asleep, his arms wrapped around one of his pillows. A few wrappers from candy he found in the city lied around the room, as well as a few other pieces of treasure he found. It was odd, seeing such a disheveled mess like this coming from him, but he'll clean it up soon. Pin stood there for a moment before slowly shutting the door and letting out a deep sigh of relief. She trudged back to her bedroom, convincing herself it was just a crazy dream and it wasn't real. But why couldn't she just fall asleep afterwards? Why did the same nightmare wake her again 2 weeks later? The nightmare continued to rise repeatedly, and every day, it ate away inside Pin's mind. It got so bad to the point where she couldn't wake up. She finally stopped pacing around the garden, as she plopped down on her knees on a soft bed of soil. She took a long breath and looked at her around her garden. Okay, she mumbled. Whatever that dream is, it isn't real. It's just a dream. She looked up. It's just fake. It's not real. It won't happen. She hesitated towards the end of her sentence. Many questions still lingered in her mind. Why hands? Why the bodies? Why not just plants? She sighed and stood up as she began to walk back towards the city. I just hope that I can get sleep tonight, she whispered under her breath. So much gore. The garden was glowing. Blossom says, hello, I missed the important. Well, you missed the first chapter, but I don't think anything that important. The garden was glowing that night. Pin was standing in it, quietly watering her small succulents and small plants. It was calm, it was peaceful, it felt nice. She pulled out her trowel and began to dig into the earth, until the trowel hit something in the ground. She hit against the so-called item and tried to dig around it, but nothing seemed to be working. Sorry. After attempting to dig around it, she grabbed it and attempted to pull it out from the ground. It felt cold and soft, and her hands gripped around it as, with one wave of strength, put it clean out of the ground. She sighed and looked out to see what it was. It was a hand. Pin let out a shriek as she tossed around the hand across the garden. Pin let out a shriek as she tossed the hand across the garden, her arms trembling. She looked around the garden and began to notice the corpses, all of them staring at her with their glossy, lifeless eyes. Pin felt her eyes sting with tears as she got up and began to run out of the garden. But as soon as she got into the entrance, she noticed someone standing with something in their arms. It was herself. She was covered in blood and dirt, standing on what seemed to be Rocky's corpse. She held a pot in her filthy hands, and her eyes were dark and luminescent with pure evil. Pin shook her head and began to run at her, but suddenly stopped in her tracks as the other Pin grabbed her arm and held it tight. Her wrist began to sting as she tried to free herself from this imposter.
It's not my fault. The hackers have locked my mind in a vault.
She began to call for help, looking around for anyone, just anyone, to help and free her. But everyone was dead. The other Pin clenched her hand harder and harder, grinning more and more as she saw Pin's struggles and cries for help. After a few seconds, the other Pin began to dig her nails into Pin's wrist. She began screaming on Pin, suddenly falling to her knees and still attempting to pull away from the grip. The other Pin was smiling as she suddenly began to fade away into thin air, quietly. Pin felt the grip subside as she fell down, holding her wrist and grunting in pain. She felt one droplets of blood trickle down to her arm as she attempted to stop the bleeding. But as she began to sit up, something grabbed her by the leg. Wake up! Pin shot up, screaming in fear. As she could make out, others surrounded her, attempting to try and calm her down, with expressions of concern and worry painted all over their faces. This only brought Pin more panic as she raised her fist, ready to throw punches while she screamed with all her might. Get away from me! Her fist flew down quickly with the force of adrenaline and anger, but was stopped by Fries, who grabbed her fist and put it on down gently. He put his hand on her cheek and turned her face turned her to face him and Coiny, his expression stern and serious. Relax, he began, his voice stern and calm. It's just us. Pin looked around slowly. Coiny, Needle, golf ball, and tennis ball stood around her bed, all looking back at her. She let out a shaky sigh before slouching a bit, rubbing her eyes. What happened? She murmured sleepily. Golf ball jumped down from tennis ball's head and walked beside her, opening a small notepad that was filled with scribbles and jots and notes. She looked down, took a glance at the notes, and looked back up. Well, everyone was occupied with their responsibilities before we heard Coiny running out of the building, yelling, she explained. He told us you weren't waking up at all, yet you were yelling and crying in your sleep. And in my calculations and my diagnosis, there's a 93% chance you were in a state of sleep paralysis. Pin rubbed her head in confusion before someone took a hold of her hand and examined it. Whoa, Pin. Her Needle examined closely. Her wrist was red and swollen. Cuts visible with clotted blood on the edges. Finger marks were on the area where the hand had a death grip on her. Pin flinched as a wave of pain hit her from the wrist. Pin, did he do that? Fries raised his eyebrow, crossing his arms. Pin shook her head no, concern and fear clearly shone on her face. What about you, Coiny? He looked down to a small penny beside the bed. What? Are you serious? He scoffed and turned his head. I wouldn't do this, especially to Pin. Fries groaned and rubbed his temples in annoyance before looking down at Pin's wrist. Needle grabbed to his side and looked down at Coiny. I mean, you were grabbing her and shaking her like a rag doll to wake her up, so if anything, she felt pain on her shoulders. Needle sarcastically replied. Well, we're not talking about her shoulders right now. We're focusing on her wrist, Needy. A slap echoed across the wall of the room. Needle looking down at Coiny, infuriated. Don't call me Needy, she jeered. Coiny grunted in annoyance as he rubbed his glowing red cheek. Pin got down and sat on the edge of the bed, letting out a half-hearted sigh. Guys, thanks for the help, she assured. But I'm alright now, there's nothing to worry about. Glances exchanged around the room as Coiny walked up to her and laid a hand on her wrist. Are you sure you're gonna be okay? He mused. Like GB said, he was screaming at one point, and then he began crying out of nowhere. Pin opened her mouth to speak, but quickly paused as the memories of the nightmare put back to her mind. She stammered. It was just a dream, but I'll be fine. She hesitated at the last part before looking at Coiny, confident soon filling her eyes. Coiny let out a warm smile as he put an arm around her and gave her a playful punch. Now that's the confident team captain I know, he chuckled. Pin couldn't help but smile and relax on her friend's shoulder. Sure, he could be an idiot at times, but God, he could change to a caring sweet friend in just a snap. She let her eyes close as she sighed out. It was just a dream. They stayed that way for a moment before Pin lifted her head up. So, Pin, tennis ball shyly interrupted before looking at the notepad. You don't have to worry about this happening anymore. This happened once, and in my research, sleep paralysis only happens once. So, you're all good to go. Pin smiled. Thanks, TB. Now that you're okay and this is over, me and TB are gonna go fix up the water teleporter. We found a way to get it to let transport at least 4 less people outside the LOL. She beamed with pride. Well, I'm gonna be continue working on the garden. Make sure to take it easy today, Pin. If you need anything, just tell us, he reminded. A feeling of ecstasy filled Pin from head to toe as she stood up and nodded, and a hand on her hip. She waved goodbye as everyone began to leave out of the room, leaving her and Coiny behind. Coiny gave her a gentle pat on the back as he chuckled. You always treat her like royalty, Pin. Even though others are annoyed, they still in a way obey you. A smirk slowly spread across Pin's face, her eyes darkening a bit. Boy, it was sure what it would feel like. Being the center of her attention, being treated like royalty. What are the comments here? It's like 214. Oh, 9 school. Okay. It's been a few days since the sleep paralysis incident, yet Pin was craving more and more to the feeling of admiration. Her bones were aching. She wanted so much attention. She wants to be a leader of everything and everyone. Moments came by every now and then when someone needed a leader, and obviously Pin couldn't turn down that offer. She stepped in and lead the day off while she took in all the admired whispers of her companions behind her. She effing loved it. It filled her with so much pride, she literally shook. Dominance was a very powerful thing, and it should be fought with responsibility. Being cautious and self-control is key when it comes to dominance. Otherwise, it becomes like a drug. You become extremely addicted to the point where you would do anything to get the feeling back. And that's exactly what happened. She was running out of ways to lead everyone. Because of that, it was driving her mad. She needed to be a leader. She needed someone to cower below her. Yes, cower. She no longer wanted to be admired. She wanted to be admired and feared. But how? She walked around Hero City in search for someone to just rule over. She continued to wander aimlessly before she heard a voice from the distance. I think after we find some berries, we should find a few blankets too, I see. I don't think Pencil's gonna let us sleep inside. Oh, really? The voice sighed. Or what's my best Ice Cube impression? Oh, really? The voice sighed. I know, Icy, but hey, maybe she'll let us stay inside soon. We just have to prove we can be a great alliance members. Book and Ice Cube. Pin swiftly went behind a small house before peeking down the sidewalk. She could see the two slowly walking in this direction, chatting away. Besides yoyo berries, what else did they need? Book looked down at her small friend. Ice Cube stopped walking before taking a small piece out of paper that was folded neatly. She unfolded it with small crinkles coming from the sheet and quickly scanned through the list. We need berries, some pop, chips, fruit, some rice, pasta, and chicken. Ice Cube looked up after reading off the items. Book gave her a kind smile. Alright then, we'll get them, and we're on the way back when we get out. Hi girls! The two shrieked as Pin jumped out. A large grin plastered onto her face. Book relaxed as she let out a sigh. Oh, it's just you. Hi Pin, she dusted herself off. Hey girls, where are you two headed? Her voice was bright and joyous as she looked down at Ice Cube, who was sliding behind Book timidly. Oh, we were just doing some errands. We're busy today. She grinned nervously. Pin nodded before looking down, only to see a sheet of paper in her hands. Ooh, what's this? She snatched the paper away from her hands as Ice Cube's eyes widened. Berries, pop, chips. She read out. Wait, hold on. Berries, pop, chips. She read off with an unenthusiastic tone. She scanned through for a bit more before crumpling the paper into a small ball and tossing it at Ice Cube's head. The ball gently bonked against Ice Cube's eye as she let out a cry of pain. She kneeled down, holding her eye as Book knelt down to her level and began to check her. Ice Cube, oh goodness. She stood up and glared at Pin. What was that for? Pin snickered and looked at Ice Cube, who looked up back at Pin. Tears were sliding down from her eye that was shut, while the other one was filled with pure fear. Jesus Christ. What are all these stories? A laster, unexpected love, a school teacher. I'm not reading all that. Oh, what's wrong, I see? You have boo-boo. You want a kiss to make it feel better? She laughed out. Ice Cube's body was shaking uncontrollably as Book stood in front of her, her arms crossed. Speaking in a mocking tone towards someone only proves the person speaking in a tone is as petrified as the victim of the brutal's insult. Book stated, her voice stern and clear. Pin raised her eyebrows in awe. Oh, how sweet. Well, Red is protecting little Miss Crybaby. She grinned. Book clenched her fist before stepping closer to Pin. Don't call me Well Red, she growled. Oh, shut your trap, you nerd. Pin let out a half-hearted laugh as she stepped closer, staring down the book. She put a hand on her hip and smirked. Stop acting like little Miss Spotty Pants, will you? You aren't as well read as everyone thinks you are. Book's eyes widened as he resisted the urge to punch her clean on the face. Whoa there, what's wrong, Missy? Can't put down someone who is as awesome and dominant as me? Well, Book stated, her finger pointing in the air. You're just a dramatic faker who's constantly on a search for being on attention, the center of attention 24/7. You're acting this way because you're scared of something, and if you think such a great and natural born leader, you're just a weak coward. Even Pencil is a better leader than you. She looked down at her nails. This was a spark. Pin's face was burning red with rage as he suddenly tackled Book to the ground. Book let out a shout before a painful wheeze escaped her lips as Pin punched her hard in the center of her cover. Book swung her fist across Pin's cheek, jerking her head to the side. The two began to throw forceful and painful punches and kicks, screams and yells echoing across the street. Meanwhile, Ice Cube dashed through the streets. She panted as she looked around with her one good eye, since her other eye was still blue with tears. Oh my god! Chill. She saw a few objects in the sidewalk as she screamed out, "Coming through!" Within a second, yelps and cries filled the air as startled objects toppled over. Ice Cube yelled out an apology before running even faster than before. Within a few seconds, she found a clubhouse. She skidded to a halt at the door and began to bang hard on it. Pencil! Help me! It's Ice Cube! She yelled anxiously. A groan of pure annoyance came from inside. What could you possibly want, Ice Cube? She grunted. Book is hurt! Pin needs to take some deep fried breaths, Heather says. Pin threw down punches at an alarming speed, grunting vigorously as she looked down at Book. Ripped pages were scattered around him, while Book's cover was nearly torn clean off. Her left eye was swollen shut, as her cover was dented with holes from each and every punch. Blood trickled down Book's chin as she lay still, hoping that Pin would stop soon. Pin's sides were darkened from the bruises that Book was responsible for. Her cheek was a deep purple from the swift blow that Book gave her. Soon, footsteps were getting louder and louder very quickly before a loud voice was heard. Hey, that's enough! Break it up! Two pairs of hands clutched Pin by the shoulders and lifted her off the Book. Pin was still punching the air and was struggling from the grips of these two to be free and finish off Book to teach her a lesson. Does that feel good? Huh, punk? Did I teach you a lesson? Or do you need more? Pin screamed down at the top of her lungs. Fries held her down as Corny turned to face Pin. His eyes widened in pure shock and fear. Okay. Can you make BFDI 11 show but I don't get censored? Sorry, but I canceled the BFDI but I don't get censored series already, so no. Pin, stop, he yelled out. She took a glance behind him. Hold on. Her eyes bloodshot and furious. Their lines were huddled out around Book, with Ruby cradling her in her arms. Book let out a soft cough before slowly sitting up, flinching hard from the waves of pain hitting her like a bus. Ruby clutched her close, tears pouring down her cheeks. Pencil's face was painted with worry as he spoke with Book, asking her if she could hear them and if she could see. Bobo was consoling Ice Cube while holding some sort of heating pad over her eye. Match sat next to Pencil with a first aid kit and tending Book's wounds. Pin's breathing was heavy and loud as she looked back at Coney, only to realize she was talking to someone else. Gelatin. Pin looked at him and saw something blue shining in his hand. Oh no. Oh no. You don't, you little shit. Pin slammed herself backwards and slammed thighs against the gravel road. A loud crack and grunt of pain echoing through the air. She felt his arms release as she stood up and dashed her way towards the Alliance to finally finish this. Ruby looked up and shrieked as everyone turned and looked at Pin, who was dosing at them at full speed. The Alliance flinched before they heard a slight chop, sounds of twinkles, and then silence. They looked up, shaking in fear and holding their breaths. Pin stood there, anger still clear on her face, her arms reached out and ready to rip through their chest and cause pain. She was frozen. A little freeze juice a day can make fights like these go away. Denton tossed an injection of freeze juice in the air before catching it. Coney shook his head and ran to Fries, who was on the ground writhing in pain. My back, he moaned out. I wish Coney would moan for me. Coney slowly sat him up before looking back at the Alliance with a somber look in his eyes. Alright, tonight we're letting Brooke and Ice Cube sleep in the clubhouse, she mumbled, a hand on her head. Max clutched her arm. We should head back then, Pessiments, and get everything ready for the two. She looked down at the others, who were dreary and dazed about the whole situation that had just hit them. Pencil nodded and stood up. Guys, let's just go back to the clubhouse. Ruby, help Brooke walk back. Bubble, keep a close eye on Ice Cube's eye, make sure she doesn't have some sort of paper cut. They all nodded as they sluggishly stood up and plodded down the streets, Brooke mumbling in pain and Ruby rubbing her back. How weird it is, a situation as bad as this, bringing people closer together. Coney sighed and looked back at Pin's frozen body. He walked over to her and looked at her closely. I think you need a bit more rest, buddy. How does a push pin win against the hardcore muscle? That's crazy. Pin sat on her bed, staring down at the floor. The effects of the freeze juice finally wore off an hour ago, and now all she was doing was rethinking everything that just happened. You're always a shitty leader. You're just weak. You're just scared of something, that's why you're acting this way. Voices echoed inside Pin's mind as she held her head. Tears stung her at her eyes as memories of the night began to return. She had to do something. She had to make this stop. She wanted to feel happy again, knowing none of it wasn't real, and... Wait. The only times I ever felt happy was when I was later, Pin thought. Pin shot up and snatched a paper and pen from a small desk. She began to write down what she saw in each and every nightmare. It always starts the same way. The garden. Fog. Holes in the ground. Tombstones. Corpses. Me. She looked up, tapping her pencil on the small desk. I'm repeatedly smiling in the dream, but I never really understood why. Was it because of what I did? Was it because... Pin's eyes stretched wide, began to scribble down more notes before the door slowly creaked open. Hey... A soft-spoken voice made Pin jump a bit before she flipped the sheet onto his blank side. She turned around, only to see Courtney with a sober smile on his face. Pin sighed and looked down. Oh. Hey, Courtney, she uttered, rubbing her arm. Courtney walked in and sat himself on her bed. Looked at her with a look of disappointment yet care in his eyes. How are you feeling? I know you were pretty bruised up, but I managed to put a few ice packs on you while you were out. Pin nodded, as she pointed at ice packs on the side of the pillow. I took them off when I woke up, but thanks, Courtney. She put a hand on her bruised cheek. And besides the fact I feel crappy what I did, but at the same time I don't, I'm feeling okay. Courtney raised an eyebrow. You did cause a lot of damage. From what I heard, Brooke has a black eye and a lot of black and blue. Even a few teeth of hers are missing, and her cover is in really bad shape. No, this is not the T-Paralytic script. Ice Cube's eye has gone better, though she did get a cut from the paper? I don't know, but she was hurt, but she's doing okay. Bad Fries? Pin's voice cracked a bit, her eyes not moving to the ground. Cody stayed quiet for a moment before clearing his throat. You messed up his back, and he's in severe pain and we're trying to help. Crack it out? You can barely move. Couldn't let out a good concern with covering face with her hands. I'm so stupid. Her voice came out muffled from her two hands. Coney sighed and walked up next to her, rubbing her back in consonants. Hey, he's not gonna die or anything. It's just some back pain. It's not that. It's the fact I hurt people. She hugged herself in fear. Something's wrong. I can feel it. I don't feel right. I feel like something's gonna happen. What if I die? What if you die? What if I get killed by someone? What if we're being watched? What if... Whoa. Take it easy, Pin. Breathe. Coney looked at her and put a hand on her shoulder. Attempting to breathe slowly and steadily so Pin could follow his example. Pin slowly looked up, her breathing fast and shortened at first, but after a moment, her breathing was subtle and slow, and Coney gave her a small smile. Listen, Pin, you're okay. You're here. You're alive. And look, everything's normal. Everyone besides the few others are alright. We aren't being watched by anything or anyone, and we never were. We had her back. I know that you still freaked out after that sleep incident, but everything's okay now. There's nothing to be afraid of, Pin. She gently cupped his hand over hers, letting her head lay on his shoulder. He felt her soft breathing as she began to doze off. She smiled and closed his eyes as well, rubbing her hand gently with his thumb. I promise. Deep fried breaths. Pin's eyes opened to the darkness of the room. She rubbed her eyes and began to turn to her side, but froze as she felt someone behind her. She slowly lay down on her back before glancing to her left, her vision still adjusting to the darkness. Coney lay beside her, snoring ever so softly. She couldn't help but smile as she turned to her other side and faced the desk. Maybe he wouldn't notice. She slowly crawled out of the bed and grabbed the paper and pen she was using earlier. She looked back at Coney before rereading her notes and continuing where she left off. Maybe this wouldn't be bad. I was a leader in the dream, and the garden was somehow better. It was glowing, had so many forms of life. She took a shaky sigh before jotting down bullet points and writing at the top of the paper. Garden plan. She scratched a small summary beneath the paper title. After repeating the dream I've been having, I'm going to try out a small way to make the garden more alive. I mean, it was boring. Why not make it more... Did the bed make a small creak as Pin stopped writing? She heard a small yawn and some shuffling. Coney. She turned around and saw that his arms were slowly moving around the bed, looking for her. She smiled for a split second as she watched him before setting the paper down. She got up and quietly walked over, placing the pillow in his reach, and saw how his arms wrapped around the pillow. As he snuggled it close and smiled. She made her way back and continued where she left off. Why not make it a bit more exciting? 1. Apologize to everyone you hurt. Make yourself look innocent and regain your good reputation. 2. Keep track of where everyone is. Takes a few days, but jot down where the most popular areas where everyone meets. Then choose the most isolated. 3. Find someone who isn't well known or liked, and bring them to the so-called area. 4. Kill them. 5. Cut off their hands, and quickly take the hands and hide them someplace safe. 6. Leave the body. Wait until they find out and take it for future use. 7. Wait 3 or 4 days. 8. Repeat. Pin sighed, her hands trembling violently. She neatly folded the paper and stuck it into a drawer before walking back to the bed and staring down at Coney. She began to think. Should Coney be part of this plan? Should I spare him or should I kill him? He would make the garden look more wonderful. Pin shook her head as she quickly walked back and grabbed the paper. At the bottom, she wrote the following. Rule 11. Do not hurt your best friends. How many chapters are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Jesus Christ. I'm gonna stop at, when should I stop at? Actually, I'll just stop in like maybe 5 hours. Pin strode down the street, gazing around and then back to the ground in an apologetic manner. Today was the day she would put her plan into action. In her hands were 2 pots. In one was a small green succulent with an emerald on it. In the other was a batch of blue flowers with a small pearl on the bottom. This, in her mind, was the best iron to give when apologizing. This was her plan. Simi go apologize to Book and Ice Cube about the incident. Next, check up on Fires and see how it's moving up. After that, check where everyone is at what time, and what hour. And then, the plan truly reaches its max. She has to find someone that's truly an outcast, known well but not knowing their location. Oh well, she'll figure out that later. Right now, we take things one at a time. Slow. After a few minutes of wandering, she made it to the clubhouse where she slowly walked to the door and knocked it 3 times. She could hear voices inside before shoving in footsteps that got gradually louder by the door. A tiny click was heard before the dunk swung open. Pencil stood in the doorway, one hand around the door while the other was on her hip. Her eyes had dark bags beneath them, revealing that she was dead beat. She looked around and then at Pin, before her glossy eyes were filled with dissatisfaction and anger. "Can I help you?" she snapped. "Can I help you?" she snapped. Whoa, Pencil. You look like a mess. The words escaped Pin before she slapped her hand over her mouth. Pencil snarled. "Well, a certain someone nearly beat up a linesman to death, so I had to stay up night and day making sure to keep her stable and alive," she shouted. Pin bit her lip and looked down. She remembered the recovery centers and how long they'd been looking for. She remembered the day the usual whirring noise came to a stop, revealing it has broken down and stopped working. As a result from the glue as well. How did Blue even get there? She looked up. Is Bug and Ice Cube here?" She hesitated. She looked back up at Pencil, who had an eyebrow raised. "Sorry, but I don't know assholes in here." Look who's talking. Pencil began to shut the door before Pin stuck her foot to stop. Before Pin stuck her foot and stop it from closing. Pencil let out a grunt before eking the door open again. "Seriously, what do you want? I'm not letting you hurt. I want to apologize, Pencil." Her voice was dull. Pin looked at her, sudden confusion hitting her. "What? Listen, I need to apologize. What I did." She glanced to the side. "What I did was messed up, and I just want to apologize to Book, if she's okay." "Really?" Pin gave her a stern look before she sighed. I know, she questioned. Pin gave her a stern look before she sighed. "Fine, and yes, she's available and she's in better condition than she was yesterday." She let the door drift open, before Pin walked inside. The floor had dull, multicolored tiles, as well as the walls. She smiled a bit. "It's the same recommendations." Okay, I can see what this one is. Ah, no. Pencil walked into her room, where Ice Cube, Book, and Ruby sat on a small sofa, watching television. Ice Cube was holding a pack of ice. Wow. To her eye, leaning against the couch sleepily. Book had multiple bandages wrapped around her. A few of them already had foggy spots of red. She had an ice pack to one of her eyes, while the other was on her cheek as she watched the television in a slothful manner. Ruby sat beside her, an arm around her friend in a way to console her friend. In general, they all looked exhausted. Pencil cleared her throat but received all her eyes on her. "Book. Ice Cube. Someone wants to pay you a visit." The eyes were filled with confusion until Pin slowly stepped beside Pencil. Ice Cube's eye widened in horror, as Book's eyes darkened in annoyance. Ruby shot up and put her arms around the two protectively. What's she doing here? Ruby screamed angrily, breaking the tense silence between the three of them. Pin sighed and looked at the two. I just wanted to apologize. Ruby put her arms down as she looked at her closely. Pin looked at her, confused and a bit bothered by the small gemstone. Are you sure? You're not gonna hurt them, like, are you? She raised an eyebrow angrily. Pin backed up a tiny bit before frowning. Ruby, just like stop this like nonsense. Just let her apologize. Match's voice echoed from the kitchen. She must have been so loud that the entire clubhouse could hear her. Though, how strange. Match actually having a good response, letting her apologize to a good trip of some sort. Ruby apologized before letting out a sigh and pulling back the pin. Hurt them and they regret it. Oh please, she couldn't even throw a punch without crying from the impact. She nodded slowly as Ruby stomped out the room, leaving Book, Pin, and Ice Cube in a very heavy silence. Pin is so good. What do you want? Book's raspy voice felt like a hard punch in the gut. What do you want? Book's raspy voice felt like a hard punch in the gut to Pin. She gulped and looked at her. Listen, she stuttered. I really had to apologize about yesterday. I really do. I didn't mean for everything to escalate like that. Then why did you throw that people to Icy? She snapped. Pin finished the rubber still swollen wrist. I swear, I didn't mean to do it that hard. What's the background? It said the bottom left. That's where the music is. Her voice making her shake. I didn't want you to get hurt. I didn't mean to hurt the both of you. My emotions got the best of me, and at first, Book's voice was still mysterious, but out of nowhere, Book's face softened as she looked at Ice Cube, who was looking at her with concern. She turned back to Pin. Hey, she mumbled. It's okay. I know you. Really not the type to start a fight. Well, unless something goes way over the wrong. But I do understand your emotions took over. She let out a soft chuckle. To be honest, I let mine get the best of me too. Are you fucking kidding me? Pen looked up at them, and let a small smile grew across her cheeks. Book smiled back, the same. One smile that she gave Ice Cube before the entire incident happened. So, you forgive me? Yes I do. Pin smiled wide. Perfect, because not only did I come to give an apology, I came to give you some gifts. Ah, I keep stuttering. Yo, who swore? I didn't swear. I'm just like saying things off the book or a fanfic. I'm not actually swearing. She held the two plants, which brightened their faces. Wow, wow. Emerald gemstone was small succulent. Thank you, Pin. She held her pot in her hands, admired the small gemstone. I got a pearl. Is that a Misky reference? Ice Cube exclaimed, her eyes twinkling with excitement. Pin smiled and rubbed her wrists. I grew these plants in my garden. I thought you guys would like them. Oh, we do like them, don't we, Icy? Book looked at her small friend, who was nodded vigorously. Pin nodded. I'm glad you both liked them. Time passed before Pin decided it was time to leave. She felt as if the team forgave her for the small mishap that took place. The lions even hung over Pin before she left. It was nice. Now it was time to give her an apology to Fries. She didn't know she didn't know how he was doing until she began to hear quite a ruckus in the small potato garden, a certain someone owned. Pin raised an eyebrow and curiously wandered to said garden, eavesdropping to the current event that was taking place. Fries, seriously, you have to at least take a break. No, you people need to leave me alone. These potatoes need to grow now, and suddenly a soft crack was heard, followed by a grunt of pain. Fries! They screamed. Pin made her way around a few buildings, and quietly peeked over to the garden to review Fries being held up by gelatin. His eyes was filled with silent agony and overflowing pain as his body seemed shook and limp. He winced again and shook Gelatin's arms off of him before dusting himself off. Okay, Fries, that's enough. You really have to rest. Gelatin mumbled nervously, looking up at him. He gave him a death glare for a moment, but only for a moment, before sighing and trudging aside. As he did so, Pin walked up to Gelatin, her eyebrow raised in concern. What was that about? He questioned innocently. Gelatin looked up at her, his eyes filled with suspicion as he slowly grabbed the freeze juice that he picked up off the ground. Well, if you don't remember what you did, Gelatin gritted his teeth, Faisal's back is really messed up. We can't really crack it to make it feel any better, and we feel like the pain is getting more worse. Pin looked over to the small house Fries plotted into and looked down at the garden. I think I can help, she suggested, shrugging her arms. Gelatin let out a loud snort before bursting into uncontrollable laughter. You helping him? That's the best joke I've heard all day. He wiped a straight tear falling down his cheek. Oh, just wait, you poor excuse of a dessert. Just wait in a few days. We'll see he's laughing then. Pin smacked him upside the head before he whined and looked up at her. Given the right opportunity, I would have frozen it, you jerk. He raised up the freeze juice and brandished the juice in Pin's face. She noticed how the liquid sparkled and glowed with a sense of reflection. She sighed. Just stay out here. I'm gonna help, whether you like it or not. And with that, she stomped away, leaving Gelatin and the freeze juice behind. Fries' leg trembled as he slowly let himself down in the chair. This was awful. Sure, the pain bothered him, but in a subtle manner. It wasn't bad, but now, after the situation with Pin, it was really messed up. He sighed and let his eyes close. Slowly drifting off. Why did I read it like that? Slowly drifting off. Fries, great. His eyes opened to see Pin standing by the doorway, concern all over her face. His eyes changed to a somber expression as he looked straight at her. Yes, Pin, he mumbled. He sounded tired. Pin walked in and stood next to him, looking down. How you feeling? She questioned. Fries brightened up. Oh, I've been feeling wonderful. It's not like my back is bothering me at all. He mocked. Pin looked down, heard from his witty remark. He looked up at her aside. No, I'm not okay. My back has been killing me all day. That's why I came here. Fries looked at her, his eyes filled with confusion. What? Fries, I came to apologize. Pin rubbed her wrist. I didn't mean to hurt you at all. When I saw Gelatin with the freeze juice, I didn't know how to react. I was feeling angry. I want to get it over with, she sighed. Yes, I know what I did was messed up, but... Fries raised an eyebrow. What? But I still don't know how to feel. I was in the wrong, I know, but... Pin began to mumble. Pin, you're mumbling again. She looked up, her eyes glossy and out of it. Oh, sorry, Fries. He looked at her for a moment before slowly getting up and putting a hand on her shoulder and squeezing it gently. Alright, now listen to me. You were in the wrong. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. But that still doesn't mean you can't be forgiven. He smiled. Pin looked up, smiling sadly. She really didn't have anything to say. Sure, Fries could be a downside during sometimes, but he still had soft sides. She smiled and embraced him into a small hug, her arms wrapped around her back. Good, because I also wanted to do this. Hold on, I have to take a break because my voice is killing me. I think I can play tic-tac-toe. Alright, I'm back. Wait a second, what? He was soon cut off, as Pin hurt him tightly, to the point where a loud crunch-like noise filled the room. Fries winced and grunted from the pain, before his eyes slowly began to open, this pain subsiding. He stood up and his eyes filled with shock and perplexity. All done, Pin grinned. Fries began to walk around, and he was soon hit with feeling relief as he realized that the back pain was now non-existent. He twitted Pin and chuckled. Thanks, Pin. Oh my god, I should have thought like Fries would die. Days went by, as Pin sat on top of a building, holding binoculars in one hand and a small notepad in the other. This was the beginning of step 2. Keep track of where everyone is. Takes a few days, but jot down where the most popular area is where everyone meets. Then choose the most isolated. She's been watching carefully at everyone in the city, and she already had a handful of notes and areas she had to avoid at specific times. Gelatin is definitely a wanderer. He walks around the city in the morning for an hour before going to Fries' garden, where he chatted with him for a few hours before going with him into his house. He also likes to go over by the Gold Canal and play around in the sand during evening hours. He sure did act like a child at times. Nito always stood by the science museum, usually in the morning. During late afternoon into evening hours, she'd leave to go hang out with Coiny, as they would both go to Fries' garden and talk about the day. Golf ball tennis were surely wanderers as well. They head to the museum in the morning, and afterwards, they go to the Yoronidi and collect the data and research. They would then proceed the woods, but they would check the water potation device and see if it reaches the maximum battery charge. Then they fight Coiny and they take a walk around the city, telling him about the data they collected. Woody wasn't really a wanderer, but he likes to go to the Goki Canal during morning hours and wander by the garden and see what the others were up to. Rocky, he likes to hang around DP and GB, the usual. Okay, hold on. Where did I hang out? Where did I leave off at? Coiny, he likes to hang out around others. He goes over to the needle to chat a bit in the morning before he explores the city, looking for small treasures he could find. He'd then walk around with TB and GB, and then he can hang out with Needle and Fires at his garden. And the free smarters? Extreme wanderers. They stay in the clubhouse for half an hour before leaving and heading over to the Yoronidi. They like to go back and forth, the same place always being the Yoronidi. They go to the canal and back to the tower. They go to the super van and go back to the tower. They sometimes go into the museum and go back to the tower. What did they do so much there? Probably everyone in Free Smart decide to kiss each other. Ah well, who cares? She looked down at her notes and sighed. She finally had enough data and information to start a plan. But now the question is, who's first? Definitely not Coiny or Fries. Off limits. DB, no. TB will find out and he probably start a big investigation or something. Rocky, not yet. Woody, no. She sighed as she looked at the tower. This was going to be a bit... Wait. She looked at the tower closely before seeing a small rectangular shape slowly dangling from the side. Oh no! No, 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 no. No! No! It took her a moment to realize until she suddenly knew. Her eyes darkened as she smirked. She now knew who was next. No! Okay. Icy winds danced slowly through the autumn night in the city. It was late, as everyone in the city was in their usual slumber. As always, sleeping without a care, they all didn't think it was that much. 1 hour later, the students spoke. Yeah, well, it's like 50 chapters. Expect the entire faction to be... Fuck. I'm not gonna say anything. But you expect the entire fanfiction to be done in an hour? They all didn't think it would go through that much. They didn't know it was old and abandoned, but none of them took it that seriously. Well, except Book. Obviously, she was spooked by the old, musty city, but thankfully she got used to it. Pin laid wide awake in his small bedroom. She was staring at the ceiling, her heart beating at a rapid pace. Each beat hit her head as a small vibration echoed to her head. It was finally time for step 2. Kill someone. Pin's anxiety spiked to the max that morning. She had everything ready, but now she had to wait. The waiting game is very, very harsh. Waiting for something like this was similarly waiting for someone's first experience on a roller coaster. It looks absolutely petrifying, but that little voice in your back of your head keeps whispering for you to go on. Go on. Get on. It's gonna be fun. That's exactly what was going on in Pin's mind. Towards the morning, she tried to soothe herself by taking a small walk around the city before heading to the garden. Yet, she couldn't just stop shaking, and her face couldn't regain her normal shade of red. She received a few glances and stares, and he was stopped by Fries. He was busy taking up a few more seats before he saw Pin, her arms making small twitches and her body visibly trembling, and then going still as she was on and off switch. He hesitated before calling out her name, pulling the child down. It definitely caught her off guard. She jumped and gasped sharply before it tensely faded away as she realized it was just Fries. Pin, are you okay? His voice filled Pin with odd sense of comfort as she sighed. I'm fine, she started out, fiddling with her fingers. Fries raised an eyebrow. You're acting anxious again. You sure you're okay? Pin hesitated, before nodding quickly and slowly backing away. I'm okay, even though I have to go. And with that, she quickly made her way down the street, leaving Fries confused, suspicious, and especially concerned. She also unexpectedly ran into Courtney, which startled her even more. She actually began to tear up from all the anxiety building up in her. Whoa, Pin. He quickly held her hand and gave it a small squeeze. What's going on? Are you okay? Pin quickly wiped her head and nodded. Her eyes and nodded, suddenly feeling faint and weak. I'm fine, she gasped out. Courtney shook his head and put an arm around her and began to lead her back to her home. You aren't okay, Pin. You need to calm down. Come on. Pin didn't fight back, and instead she allowed a Instead, okay, I'm gonna read it back. Pin didn't fight back. Instead, she let out a soft moan in reply as she trudged by his side, trying her best not to collapse. After arriving to her home, Courtney helped her settle in and get comfortable. He even made her some tea to help calm down. He was too kind. The two spent the afternoon together, Pin venting about her anxiety and how it couldn't leave her alone, and Courtney calming her down and let her know she could beat this. He told her a few light jokes, and gave her some tips on how she could defeat the anxiety she had. He also told her a few stories about his day to get her mind off things. Courtney explained how he took a trip to TLC at one point and saw how the Lockwood LOL was getting worse and deteriorated. Interesting. She had to keep that in mind. Time quickly flew by, and soon the sun was already setting over the horizon. Courtney looked out the window outside. It was time to head back. Courtney gave her a goodbye hug and reassured her once more that she was going to be alright. He told her that he'd come back in the morning to see how she was doing, and they could hang out even for the day. Pin smiled. After a moment of farewells, Courtney left, leaving Pin in a small house, feeling relaxed and safe. But now it was over. She looked at the side to the clock on her nightstand. 3 a.m. She took a slow breath as she sat up and quickly sneaked out of her room. She held her written map and plan in her head and clenched it tightly, a slight clinking sound coming from the back from the clench. She left her door slightly open as she creeped down the hallway, careful of the floorboards that could potentially make noise. She passed down the room but Courtney would stay at if she wanted to sleep over, in which she knew he wasn't there today. She stopped as she entered the kitchen and looked around. She could see a blade shining on the counter with the moonlight, bouncing off the reflection. Should she even bring a weapon? Yes. At a high distance off ground, she could simply chop him off. What was she even saying? That was the plan anyway. In this motor, and possibly the next few, she wanted to make these deaths look accidental. If she didn't, it would cause a panic. And a panic leads to everyone staying inside. And that would make it twice as difficult if she wanted this plan to pass by easily. She sighed and walked outside. The cold air suddenly hitting her hard. It was a bit windy, so she had to get this over with quickly. Otherwise, she could be harmed in this process as well. As she walked down the quiet, empty streets, her arms began to tremble and shake. Oh dear God, please not now, anytime but now. She walked down even faster before the thoughts could race through her mind, and before she even knew it, she saw the Euro nearly a few miles away. And in the air, a cage swaying back and forth in a high altitude of a tower. She quietly entered the small doorway into the tower and slowly began to climb the steps to the top. Her body began to tremble as her breathing began to go quickly. This was it. All she had to do was push. This was it. It shouldn't be that hard, right? She walked faster. Fire was kind of a jerk as well. He deserved it more than anything. Courtney's enemy. Fire was kind of a jerk as well. He deserved it more than anything. Courtney's enemy. Former winner of BFDI. Leafy's best friend. Pin gripped her hand on the bar of the stairwell as she climbed faster, lost in the dots. Leafy and Fire were so close. She could remember how she saw Fire helping Leafy out during the challenges. And hoped they would always be there for each other if one of them was ever needing assistance. She remembered when Fire swooped Leafy away from nearly being crushed, and the two flying off into the sunset. Fire holding Leafy as close as him as possible. And then she remembered the chase. Leafy running away. Everyone running after her angrily. Her disappearing to who knows where. And then silence. No one dared mention Leafy's name, especially when evil Leafy's on the loose. And then BFDI came along, when Leafy returned. Yet Pin didn't care about her. She stuck to her word, saying that Leafy was evil and that she would never be forgiven by anyone. Leafy hasn't seen anyone ever since BFDIO. She could be anywhere. That's when Pin stopped in a cold sweat, looking around frantically. She's still out there. She could be following me. But she's on the roof. She began to step backwards, but her eyes widened as she lost her balance. She quickly grabbed the hold of the handlebar and put herself back up, shaking. She gulped. She looked down and felt her heart sink. It was a bobbing head. But no one had hair, unless they had collect sunrise views. She picked it up and looked around once more, anxiety peeking at her voice. She had to hurry. She hesitated before slowly climbing up the stairs once again. She could begin to make out the beam of moonlight from the door that's at the top of the building. This was it. After a few more steps, she finally made it to the top. Dots were screaming and jumping around her in her mind as she felt tears prick at her eyes. Do it. He's dead me anyways. Doesn't matter. This will make you feel better. She felt a tear slide down her cheek as she looked down the wrist. It was glowing red. She jumped and shook her head and faced the doorway nervously. She clenched her hands tightly and slowly walked down into the roof, her eyes bloodshot with fear. Fire snored, his arm dangling out around a small cube-like hole in a cage. His voice was slowly fading away, as if screaming from sunrise to sunset has really took a toll on it. He hated heights. He was petrified at them. Yet here he was, all took it up from a fight-filled day dangling high up in the air. A small puddle of drool slowly began to slip out of his mouth as she shifted a bit, and soon it trickled down his chin. He awoke and let out a yelp of pain. Ow! He sat up and rubbed his chin, dazed and confused. His eyes hung heavy with exhaustion as he noticed just because of the drooling. Oh well, this happens. He looked across the cage, and suddenly his eyes widened in shock. There, off on the top of the tower was a silhouette of. Wait, was that Pencil? Ruby? Is that you? He called out, but soon flinched in pain. His door was dropping in hoarse. He knew that it would soon give out. He heard a scoff. Seriously, Fiery? No, it's me, Pin. I'm helping you out of here. You are? He quickly jumped but screamed in fear as the cage suddenly swung with a gust of wind. He grabbed into one of her bars and held on tight. Well, if you are, please, Siri. I feel like this cave is going to snap and collapse any second. His voice covered with fear. Pin rolled her eyes and looked at the string. The string was getting thick and sturdy. Or a string. Yet he could see that the middle of it was slowly getting thinner, with a few strands sticking out. Shit. I could just let him fall and cut the string, she thought to herself. No, but it wouldn't work. You get so many broken bones and injuries from the fall, but nope, not death. She didn't know. She got near the edge and looked down. Her eyes widened as she towered downwards a bit and gripped the handlebars tightly. No wonder he kept on screaming. It really was a huge drop. She gulped as he took a few steps back, and suddenly sprinted towards the cage. She shut her eyes as she looked over the handlebars and gasped with blast of air that hit her. She felt the air as cold as knives, hitting her hard before her body collapsed onto the cage. She quickly tightened the bars and hugged herself as close to the cage as she could, as she felt violently swinging inside to side. Meanwhile, Fire was tumbling around, letting out a shriek of fear every now and then. After what seemed to be a very long time, the cage finally settled and Pin slowly loosened her grip around the bars. She stood up but soon flinched in pain. It came from her side. She looked down and gently touched it and winced. She could feel a growing lump from the impact on her side with the cage. She looked down and smiled, yet it was locked. She smirked and chuckled softly. Free smarters. They really were smart. Pin grabbed a small bobby pin she found and inserted it into the lock. She checked the rope. It was even thinner than before. She panicked and quickly fumbled before the lock gave in. Haha. She drew the lock down and opened the gate, and reached down. Okay, Fire, give me your hand, she exclaimed. Fire didn't hesitate as he grabbed her arm tightly, quivering. No!